What happens when a prince walks onto a comedy news show expecting royal treatment and instead gets reality checked by a host who refuses to bow down? In just 36 seconds of one single comment, Prince Harry went from composed guest to furious antagonist, storming off set, in what became one of the most shocking exits in talk show history. The Fox News studio lights were blazing hot that evening. Greg Gutfeld sat behind his desk, that signature smirk playing at the corners of his mouth as he prepared to welcome his next guest. The audience was buzzing with anticipation. Prince Harry was making his media rounds, and tonight he landed in Gutfeld's chair, a place where very few celebrities escape without at least a few scratches to their ego. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prince Harry," Gutfeld announced, his voice dripping with theatrical enthusiasm. Harry walked out, waving to the crowd with that practiced royal wave, the kind that looks friendly but maintains distance. He settled into the guest chair, adjusting his jacket, clearly comfortable in what he assumed would be another softball interview. "Your Royal Highness, thanks for being here," Gutfeld started, leaning back in his chair. "Or do I call you Harry? Or should I just call you that guy who left the palace?" The audience laughed. Harry's smile tightened, just a fraction. "You can call me Harry." "That's fine," he replied, his British accent crisp and controlled. "Great, Harry it is. So let me ask you something right off the bat," Gutfeld continued, shuffling some papers on his desk. "You've spent the last few years talking about wanting privacy, right? Wanting to escape the spotlight, protect your family from the media. Noble goals, really." "Yes, that's correct," Harry nodded, seeming pleased that Gutfeld understood. Right. So help me understand this." Gutfeld paused for effect, looking directly at his guest. "If you want privacy so badly, why are you on your 5th interview this month? Why are you here, on my show, right now, talking to millions of people?" The audience erupted in applause and laughter. Harry's jaw clenched slightly. "Well, Greg, there's a difference between controlled media appearances, where I can share my truth, and being hounded by paparazzi," Harry said, his tone taking on a lecturing quality. "Your truth," Gutfeld repeated, nodding slowly. "Interesting phrase. Is that different from the truth? Like, is your truth the one where everyone else is wrong and you're the victim?" "I never said I was a victim," Harry shot back, leaning forward slightly. "You didn't have to say it, buddy. It's kind of your whole brand at this point," Gutfeld replied, maintaining his casual demeanor. "But hey, let's move on. Let's talk about your book." "I'd be happy to," Harry said, visibly trying to regain his composure. "You wrote about some pretty personal family stuff. Your brother, your father, private conversations. Some people might call that airing, dirty laundry. What do you call it?" "I call it finally having the freedom to tell my side of things," Harry responded, his voice rising slightly. "For years, I stayed silent while lies were told about me and my wife." "Uh-huh. And now you're fighting those lies by telling different stories? Stories that make you look good and everyone else look bad?" Gutfeld asked, raising an eyebrow. "That's not what I'm doing," Harry insisted, color rising in his cheeks. "No? Because from where I'm sitting, it kind of looks like you left the most privileged position in the world, moved to California, and then spent every waking moment complaining about how hard your life was. Do you know how that looks to regular people?" The audience cheered. Harry's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "You don't understand the pressure, the constant scrutiny," Harry began. "Oh, I don't understand pressure," Gutfeld interrupted, his voice still light but with an edge now. "I do a live show every single night. I face criticism constantly. The difference is, I don't have a palace, a trust fund, and a royal title to fall back on. But please, tell me more about your struggles." "This is exactly the kind of disrespect I was talking about," Harry said, pointing a finger at Gutfeld. "You think because you have a talk show, you can belittle people's experiences? I think because I have a talk show, I can ask questions that other people are too polite or too afraid to ask. Someone's got to do it, Gutfeld replied, spreading his hands wide. And honestly, Harry, you make it pretty easy. You're being incredibly rude, Harry stated, his voice sharp. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Look, you came on this show. You knew what kind of show this is. Did you really expect me to just lob you softballs and let you promote your book without any pushback? I expected basic human decency, Harry countered, and I'm giving it to you. I'm treating you like I'd treat any other guest. Who comes on here with a story that doesn't quite add up? You're not special, Harry. That's the whole point of your new life, right? You wanted to be normal? The audience was eating this up, laughing and applauding at every exchange. Harry looked around, seeming to realize that the room was not on his side. You know what your problem is, Greg? Harry asked, his voice taking on a condescending tone. Oh, please enlighten me, Your Highness, Gutfeld said with exaggerated deference. Your problem is that you're so desperate to be clever, so desperate to get a laugh from your audience, that you don't actually care about having a real conversation. You just want to score points. And your problem, Gutfeld shot back, his smile never wavering, is that you're so used to people treating you like royalty that you can't handle it when someone treats you like everyone else. This is a real conversation, Harry. It's just not the conversation you wanted to have. You're twisting everything I say, Harry accused. I'm literally just responding to what you're saying. If it sounds twisted, maybe that's on you. Harry stood up abruptly, and the studio fell silent for a moment. He looked down at Gutfeld, his face flushed with anger. I don't have to sit here and be insulted, he declared. You're right, you don't, Gutfeld agreed, still seated, still calm. But you did agree to come on the show, and nothing I've said has been an insult. I've asked you questions. Tough questions, sure, but questions. If you can't handle that, then maybe you're not ready for the media spotlight you keep putting yourself in. You clearly have an agenda, Harry said, his voice shaking slightly with anger. My agenda is to entertain my audience and have honest conversations. What's your agenda, Harry? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you want all the benefits of being famous without any of the accountability that comes with it. You don't know anything about me or my life, Harry snapped. I know what you've told the world in multiple interviews, a documentary series, and a book. That's a lot of information, buddy. You can't put all that out there and then get mad when people actually pay attention to it. Harry looked to someone off camera, perhaps a producer or member of his team. He shook his head in frustration. You know what? This is beneath me, Harry said, his voice dripping with disdain. Beneath you? Gutfeld repeated, finally showing a flash of genuine reaction. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The real Harry. It's beneath him to be questioned. It's beneath him to be challenged. Because deep down, he still thinks he's better than everyone else. That's not what I meant, Harry protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Sure it is. You can leave the palace, Harry, but you can't leave that attitude behind, can you? You want to be seen as this down-to-earth, relatable guy, but the second someone doesn't treat you with kid gloves, you pull rank. It's beneath you. We're beneath you. I didn't say that, Harry insisted, but he was already reaching for his microphone pack, fumbling with the wire. You didn't have to. Your whole demeanor says it. The way you walked in here, the way you're reacting now. You thought this would be easy. You thought I'd be starstruck or intimidated. Newsflash, I'm not. Harry yanked the microphone off his collar, the sharp sound of the clip coming undone echoing through the studio. This interview is over, he announced, as if he were the one in control. Hey, you're welcome to leave anytime, Gutfeld said, gesturing toward the exit. But just know, walking out right now, that's only proving my point. You can't handle genuine scrutiny. Genuine scrutiny? Harry laughed bitterly. This isn't scrutiny. This is a hit job. You brought me here to make me look bad. I brought you here to ask questions. You're the one making yourself look bad by how you're handling them. Big difference, pal. Harry turned to face Gutfeld fully, his hands balled into fists at his sides. You sit here in your little studio, making jokes, tearing people down, and you think that makes you important? You think that makes you relevant? Harry's voice was getting louder now, his composure completely shattered. I think it makes me honest, Gutfeld replied, his voice steady. Something you might want to try sometime. How dare you, Harry hissed. How dare I what? Ask you direct questions? Challenge your narrative? Welcome to the real world, Harry. This is what happens when you don't have a palace PR team controlling everything. You're a bully, Harry accused, pointing at Gutfeld again. The audience booed, but not at Gutfeld. They were booing Harry. A bully? Gutfeld laughed. Harry, you're a grown man who's worth millions of dollars, who has every privilege imaginable, and you're calling me a bully because I asked you some tough questions on my own show? Do you hear? Yourself? You're impossible, Harry muttered, shaking his head. And you're unbelievable, in the worst way. You know what I think? I think you actually believed your own hype. You believed that everyone would just automatically be on your side because of who you married, because of the story you've been selling. But it doesn't work that way with everyone. My wife has nothing to do with this, Harry said sharply. I didn't even mention her specifically, but interesting that you went there. Little defensive, aren't we? Harry's face was now fully red. He looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the audience, and then back at Gutfeld. You're going to regret this, Harry said, his voice low and threatening. The studio went quiet. Gutfeld sat up straighter in his chair. Is that a threat? Did you just threaten me on my own show? Gutfeld asked, his voice incredulous, but also amused. It's a statement of fact, Harry replied coldly. Wow. Okay, so now we've gone from entitled to threatening. This is going great. Please tell me, what exactly am I going to regret? Doing my job? Asking you questions? You have no idea who you're dealing with, Harry said, and there was something almost desperate in his voice now. I'm dealing with a guy who can't handle basic interview questions without having a meltdown. That's who I'm dealing with. And honestly, Harry, it's kind of sad. Sad? Harry repeated. Yeah, sad. You had everything. Literally everything. And you threw it all away because... Why? Because the media was mean to you? Because your family didn't do exactly what you wanted? And now you're here, threatening a talk show host because he won't play along with your victim narrative. It's pathetic. That word seemed to hit Harry like a physical blow. His whole body tensed. You don't get to call me pathetic, he said through gritted teeth. I just did. And you know what makes it even more pathetic? You're proving every single point I've made tonight. You can't handle criticism. You can't handle being treated like a regular person. You expect everyone to bow down to you. And when they don't, you lose it. Harry took a step toward the desk, and for a moment, it seemed like he might actually do something physical. Security personnel appeared at the edges of the stage, ready to intervene if necessary. You want to take a swing at me, Harry? Go ahead. That'll really help your image. Former Prince Assault's talk show host. That'll sell a lot of books, Gutfeld taunted, but there was a slight tension in his voice now. Harry stopped, seeming to catch himself. He took a deep breath, visibly trying to regain control. You're not worth it, he finally said. There's that royal superiority again. I'm not worth it. But you know what? You came on my show. You sat in that chair. You agreed to this. So who's really not worth it here? Harry turned away, heading toward the stage exit. Ladies and gentlemen, Prince Harry, everyone, Gutfeld announced to the audience, who were now a mix of shocked silence and nervous laughter. Leaving before we even got to the lightning round. What a shame. Harry paused at the edge of the stage, turning back one final time. You know what your real problem is, Greg? He called out. I'm sure you're going to tell me, Gutfeld replied, leaning back in his chair. Your problem is that you're a small man with a small mind, and this little show is the only place where you have any power at all. Out there, in the real world, you're nothing. The audience gasped. Gutfeld's smile finally faltered, just for a second, before returning even wider than before. And yet, you're the one who came on my little show. You're the one who wanted to be here. So what does that make you, Harry? Harry had no response to that. He just shook his head and walked off the stage, his footsteps heavy and angry. The sound of a door slamming echoed through the studio moments later. Gutfeld sat there for a moment, letting the tension hang in the air. Then he turned to the camera. "Well, that was fun," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You know, I've had a lot of guests walk off this show over the years. Okay, that's a lie. That's never happened before. But if it had to happen, I'm glad it was with someone who really, truly earned it." He shuffled his papers, composing himself. You come on someone's show, you should be prepared to actually have a conversation. Not a coronation. A conversation. Harry forgot that. Or maybe he never knew it in the first place. The audience applauded, and Gutfeld waved them quiet. Here's the thing, and I want to be clear about this. I have nothing personal against the guy. I really don't. But when you spend years telling everyone how hard your life is, how much you've suffered, while living in mansions and signing multi-million-dollar deals, people are going to call you out on it. That's just reality. He paused, looking directly into the camera. And if you can't handle being called out, if you can't handle answering tough questions, then maybe, just maybe, you should stop doing interviews. Stop writing books. Stop making documentaries. Actually live that private life you keep saying you want. Another pause. But we all know that's not going to happen. Because the attention, the platform, the money, that's what it's really about. And when someone points that out, when someone refuses to play along with the narrative, well, you saw what happens. He runs away. Just like he ran away from his family, his responsibilities, his country. Gutfeld's voice was firm now, no longer joking. You can leave the palace, Harry, but you can't leave your problems behind. Because your biggest problem isn't the media, isn't your family, isn't the public. Your biggest problem is you. And until you figure that out, you're going to keep having moments like this. Moments where the mask slips and everyone sees who you really are. The studio was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Someone who thinks he's better than everyone else. Someone who thinks the rules don't apply to him. Someone who thinks that just because he was born into royalty, he deserves respect without earning it. Gutfeld leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. But here's the beautiful thing about America, about the real world. You don't get respect just because of your last name or your title. You earn it. Through your actions. Through your character. Through how you handle yourself when things get tough. He gestured to the empty chair beside him. And Harry, you failed that test tonight. Spectacularly. The audience erupted in applause, standing up, cheering. Gutfeld let them, soaking it in for a moment before waving them down again. All right, let's move on. We've got more show to do, and honestly, I think we've spent enough time on entitled royalty for one night. He picked up his notes, glancing at them. Up. Next, we're going to talk about something actually important. But first, we have to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere, unless you're Harry. Harry, you can keep going. Maybe all the way back to England. The audience laughed as the show cut to commercial. Back in the studio, Gutfeld was touching up his makeup during the commercial break. The stage manager counted down. Back in 5, 4, 3. Gutfeld straightened his tie, looked at the camera, and smiled. And we're back. Now, before we move on, I just want to address what happened a little bit more, because I think it's important. He clasped his hands together on the desk. When a public figure agrees to do an interview, there's an unspoken contract. They agree to answer questions, and the interviewer agrees to ask them. That's how it works. What they don't get to do is decide which questions are acceptable and which aren't. They don't get to control the narrative completely. His voice was serious, measured. Harry came on this show expecting softballs. He expected me to fawn over him, to sympathize with his struggles, to validate his choices. And when I didn't do that, when I actually challenged him, he couldn't handle it. And that tells you everything you need to know. Gutfeld pointed to the camera. It tells you that all this talk about wanting honest conversations, about wanting to share his truth, it's conditional. It only applies when the conversation goes his way. When someone disagrees, when someone pushes back, suddenly it's disrespectful. Suddenly it's beneath him. He shook his head slowly. That's not how the real world works. In the real world, people disagree. People challenge you. People question your decisions. And you don't get to just walk away from that. You face it. You defend your position. You have an actual dialogue. Another pause for emphasis. But Harry couldn't do that. Because deep down, I don't think he believes in what he's selling. I think he knows his victim narrative doesn't hold up under scrutiny. And rather than admit that, he ran. Gutfeld's expression softened slightly. Look, I genuinely hope the guy finds happiness. I do. But he's not going to find it by running away from everything difficult. He's not going to find it by blaming everyone else for his problems. At some point, you have to look in the mirror and take responsibility for your own life. He picked up his papers again. All right, enough about that. Let's talk about something else before I start sounding like a therapist. The show continued, moving on to other topics, other jokes, other segments. But the Harry interview was what everyone would remember. It was what would be clipped and shared across social media for days to come. It was the moment that defined not just that episode, but potentially Gutfeld's entire career. Because in that heated exchange, in that spectacular meltdown, something real had happened. The carefully constructed image that Harry had been building for years had cracked, revealing what many had suspected all along. That beneath the talk of wanting privacy and normalcy, there was still a man who expected deference, who demanded special treatment, who couldn't handle being treated like everyone else. And Gutfeld, for better or worse, had been the one to expose it. Not through some elaborate gotcha question or sneaky editing, but simply by treating Harry the way he treated every other guest. With direct questions, honest skepticism, and zero special treatment. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Harry had spent years complaining about the British press, about how they treated him unfairly, about how they wouldn't let him control his own narrative. And then he came to America, went on an American talk show, and had the exact same reaction when faced with questions he didn't like. As the show wrapped up, Gutfeld delivered his closing remarks. Thanks for watching tonight, everybody. It's been quite a show. We had a Prince throw a tantrum. We had some laughs. We had some serious moments. Just another night at the office. He grinned at the camera. And to Harry, if you're watching, which I'm sure you're not, I want to say this. The invitation is always open. You can come back anytime. We can have round 2. The audience laughed and cheered. But seriously, folks, tonight showed us something important. It showed us that no matter who you are, no matter what your title is, you're not above being questioned. You're not above being challenged. And if you put yourself in the public eye, if you write books and do interviews and documentaries, you don't get to complain when people actually pay attention and ask you about it. One final pause. Accountability doesn't care about your royal bloodline, and that's a good thing. Now get out of here. See you tomorrow night. The show's theme music played as the credits rolled. Gutfeld stood up and headed backstage. It had been quite a night.